The dashboard clock read 9:47 p.m. The night in Washington, D.C. was cold, but the streets were still lively, glowing under the city lights. A sleek black luxury sedan cruised calmly down the main avenue when suddenly, the red and blue flash of sirens filled the rearview mirror. "Pull the car over." "Now." The officer's voice blared harshly through the megaphone. The driver obeyed without haste, smoothly parking along the curb. The officer stepped out of the cruiser, adjusted his belt, and walked with firm, deliberate steps. He was known for his arrogant posture. Chest puffed out, chin raised, and that expression of someone who never tolerated being challenged. As he approached, he made a point of tapping his flashlight against the window. The glass slid down slowly, revealing a middle-aged black man with a calm expression, steady eyes, and a posture that instantly commanded respect. "License and registration." "Now," the officer ordered without so much as a greeting. The driver didn't flinch. He picked up his wallet with slow, deliberate movements and placed it on the dashboard. His gaze locked on the officer's. "Good evening, officer. Is there a problem?" he asked in a controlled voice. The simple question seemed to irritate the cop. He leaned in further, scanning the inside of the car as if searching for something illegal. "Problem? Yeah. This car doesn't look like it belongs to you," he sneered. "Let's see what we've got here." The man stayed composed. There was no fear in his face, only a quiet steadiness that contrasted with the tension of the moment. "I have all the documents. You can check them," he replied. The officer snatched the license with unnecessary force, as if he were seizing it from a criminal. He glanced at it quickly, frowning as he tried to process the driver's identity. "John A. Williams," he muttered, reading the name. "And what's a Williams doing driving a car like this around here?" The racist undertone was unmistakable. The driver, still steady, took a deep breath but didn't react. He simply held the officer's gaze, his eyes carrying a weight far greater than the scene suggested. The tension in the air thickened. The cop, irritated by the driver's composure, leaned in even closer. "Step out of the car." "Now," he barked, his hand already brushing against his holster, just to make clear who was in charge. The man hesitated for a second, not out of fear, but as if measuring how far this would go. Then, moving deliberately, he opened the door, keeping his hands visible, refusing to lower his head. His presence, calm, unwavering, radiated a silent authority that the officer couldn't quite name. And that night, no one around could imagine who this arrogant cop was really standing in front of. The air felt heavier as the black man stepped out of the car. The street, lit by the lampposts and the flashing lights of the cruiser, had already caught the attention of curious pedestrians. Some began to slow their pace, others raised their phones, discreetly starting to record. The officer, feeling in control, took 2 steps back and pointed toward the sidewalk. "Stand over there. Hands on your head." The driver obeyed without argument, but his posture remained upright, showing no hint of submission. That only fueled the officer's irritation. He wanted fear, he wanted to feel superior, but all he saw was an unshakable calm. "You think you're better than me, is that it?" He spat, beginning to frisk him aggressively. "A car this expensive? There's gotta be something wrong." "Officer," the man replied, his voice firm yet polite, "there is nothing illegal here. You're treating me like a criminal for no reason." The words were like gasoline on fire. The cop leaned in, his face almost touching the man's. "Shut your mouth. Say one more word and you're going to jail for contempt." The crowd nearby was already murmuring, the scene being recorded from multiple phones. The officer noticed the stares, but instead of backing off, he doubled down, amplifying his display of authority. "Car documents. Now," he barked, yanking the leather briefcase from the back seat. The man stepped forward, controlled. "Please, handle it carefully. Those documents are important." The respectful tone landed like provocation in the officer's ears. He opened the case roughly, scattering papers across the pavement. Among them were folders stamped with official crests, seals, and government signatures. The cop, barely glancing at them, kicked some of the papers aside. "Nice forgery," he sneered. "But I've seen this trick before." The onlookers were now stunned. Some began speaking out loud. "This isn't right. He's going too far. Look at those documents, they're official." But blinded by arrogance, the officer grabbed the man's arm and shoved him against the car. "You're under detention until I clear this up." It was then that the driver, still calm but with absolute firmness, locked eyes with the officer and said in a grave tone, "Officer, you have no idea who you're detaining." The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the phone seemed to freeze, waiting for the next second that would change everything. Time itself seemed suspended. The black man, still pinned against the car by the officer's grip, repeated calmly, "You have no idea who you're detaining." The officer, panting with rage, tightened his hold on the man's arm. "Oh yeah, gonna tell me you're some hotshot politician? Maybe a judge?" he mocked, raising his voice so the curious crowd could hear. "To me, you're nothing but another punk playing pretend." A murmur rippled through the growing crowd. Phones were raised, recording every second, whispers of outrage spreading. Some called for calm, others shouted at the officer to stop. But he seemed deaf, locked in his own arrogance. The man took a deep breath. His eyes showed no fear, only patience and a quiet, immovable authority. Then, in a controlled tone, he requested, "Allow me to show just one document. After that, if you still wish to continue, I won't stop you." "Document?" The officer laughed. "You've already shown enough. I know this game, a briefcase full of fancy papers, fake seals and made-up names. You're not fooling me." With a swift motion, he shoved the man against the car again, as if to prove dominance. At that moment, an older man in a suit who had stopped across the street raised his voice. "Officer, I recognize this man," he shouted, pointing firmly. "You're making a grave mistake." The cop spun around, irritated. "And who the hell are you? Stay out of this before I haul you in too." But the interruption was enough. The black man slowly crouched down, retrieving a small black wallet that had fallen among the scattered papers. He opened it, revealing a gold badge glinting under the beam of the officer's flashlight. The crowd leaned in, straining to see. Impatient, the cop snatched the badge from his hand and lifted it to get a better look. Silence. The golden emblem bore the unmistakable words, "Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces, John A. Williams." The officer froze. Air left his lungs as though he had been struck. His eyes widened, cold sweat breaking across his forehead. The hand holding the badge trembled. This can't be," he stammered. It has to be a fake." The black man stepped forward, calmly retrieving the badge and holding it up high for all to see. "This document is not fake," he declared, his voice thundering with restrained power. "I am John A. Williams, Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces, the highest authority over every soldier, every base, every defense strategy of this nation." A wave of shock swept through the crowd. Some filmed with trembling hands, aware they were witnessing history. Others stared wide-eyed, mouths agape. The officer staggered back, his arrogance crumbling to dust. "And no, it can't be," he repeated, words choking in his throat. The commander stepped closer, chin raised. His very presence was imposing. Proof of the difference between a man who carries true power and one who merely wears a uniform to feel superior. "Officer," Williams said calmly, each word heavy with weight, "you not only approached me with disrespect, you humiliated me publicly. You tore apart official documents. You abused your authority. And all of this because—" He paused, locking eyes with him. "You judged my skin color over my character." The officer tried to speak, but his mouth was dry. No words came. Voices erupted from the crowd. "Shame. Racist. It's all on camera." Now the mob was furious. The officer, pale, stumbled backward step by step, but he knew there was no escape. Williams turned to the crowd. "Keep recording," he instructed firmly. "It's important the country sees what happened here." That sentence was the final blow. The officer felt the ground collapse beneath him. Every camera pointed at him was a verdict, every angry stare a judgment. But Williams didn't shout. He didn't flail. His calm was more powerful than any rage. He simply gathered the scattered papers, placed them back in the briefcase, and stood tall, immaculate before them all. The silence was crushing until the commander spoke the words that would change everything. "Officer, as of this moment, the one under arrest is you." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Some clapped, others stood frozen in disbelief. The officer, paralyzed, didn't know whether to cry, beg for forgiveness, or run. And that night, through the lenses of dozens of phones, the world would learn that even the nation's highest military authority could be a victim of prejudice. But it would also see that truth, once revealed, had the power to strip away masks and expose society's deepest wounds. The footage of the incident spread at lightning speed. Before the night was even over, the videos were circulating across every social media platform, accompanied by explosive headlines. Police officer stops and humiliates U.S. Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief. Racism exposed nationwide. The arrogance that stunned a country. Highest military authority becomes victim of prejudice in the nation's capital. By morning, every major television network was broadcasting the videos on repeat, showing the officer shoving Williams against the car, kicking his official documents, and treating him with open contempt. Every gesture, every arrogant word, was captured in high definition by dozens of cell phones. Public opinion erupted. Millions commented online, sharing feelings of outrage, shame, and shock. Protests began to form outside the police precinct where the officer worked. Veterans groups publicly voiced their support for Williams, declaring that an attack on his honor was also an attack on the very institution he represented. Meanwhile, the officer, now suspended, went into hiding. His name and face were plastered on newspapers and websites. The arrogance that once puffed up his chest had turned into fear and despair. He knew his career was over, and perhaps his life as he knew it too. That same afternoon, a press conference was called at the Pentagon. The room was packed, cameras, journalists, microphones, all waiting for the man who, just hours earlier, had been treated like a suspect on the street. John A. Williams walked in wearing his full dress uniform. His erect posture and unflinching gaze silenced the room. Behind him, the flags of the United States and the armed forces completed the backdrop. He did not sit. Standing at the podium, he adjusted the microphone and began to speak. "Last night, I experienced what millions of citizens in this country face every day. I was stopped without cause, treated like a criminal, humiliated in public. Not for my actions, not for my behavior, but for the color of my skin." A ripple of murmurs swept through the room, but Williams pressed on, steady. "I am the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces, the highest military authority in this nation. And yet, I was reduced to a stereotype by the very person sworn to protect, not to assault." He paused, his gaze scanning the tense faces before him. "Let me be clear, I do not ask for vengeance. I do not ask that one man alone carry the weight of a broken system. The officer who stopped me must answer for his actions, yes, but he is not the sole problem. The true enemy is the prejudice embedded in our structures, in our training, and in the mindset of parts of our law enforcement." The journalists barely blinked, hanging on to every word. Williams continued, "Today I speak not as a victim, but as a soldier. And as a soldier, I know battles aren't won by blaming just one enemy. We must change the battlefield. We must reform, train, educate. We must teach that respect and humanity are not optional when you put on a uniform." The room fell into reverent silence. Many reporters, hardened by years of press briefings, had tears in their eyes. Williams then closed with a statement that would echo for decades. "The uniform I wear did not protect me last night. And that means any citizen of this nation could be a victim. Do not accept this as normal. The true strength of a nation is not in its weapons, but in how it treats its own people." The room erupted in applause. In the days that followed, the incident ignited a national wave of debate, on Capitol Hill, in universities, in the streets. Proposals for police reform gained momentum, demanding stronger human rights training and harsher penalties for racist and abusive behavior. As for the officer, He faced a rigorous internal investigation. He was expelled from the force, tried, and convicted for abuse of authority and discrimination. The arrogance that once empowered him was crushed under the weight of a society no longer willing to accept such conduct. John A. Williams, however, became more than just the commander of the armed forces. He became a symbol of resistance and change. In speeches, in meetings, and during visits to communities, he repeated the same idea. No uniform, no rank, no title makes a person greater. We are all equal under the law. In the nation's collective memory, the episode was not just another scandal. It became a turning point, a moment when arrogance exposed the wounds of an entire country. And in the minds of all who witnessed it, one image remained: the arrogant officer trembling before the man whose silent authority carried more weight than any gun or uniform ever could.